Hi, my name's Taylor, and I'm a product designer with the editor extensions team right now, and here's an update on some of the concepts that I've been working through. Focusing primarily on inline chat and code generation, but also just some ideas around targeting context, prompt templates, and AI ignore files. So starting with inline chat, this concept, just to show where we are right now today, you can see on the right, this is current behavior with Duo. So if I want to start asking questions about code, I have to manually copy and paste it into the chat panel, paste the code, and then add a follow-up question to it, and then wait for a response. The other way I can do it is through slash commands, such as like explain, but then I'm having to wait for the code to run through an explanation before I can ask a follow-up. The other way from the editor window is to use the context menu by right-clicking. So some potential improvements would be making the shortcuts a little more discoverable, and the ability to immediately ask clarifying questions rather than having to wait. So you can see here, you select from the context menu, but I am now having to wait for explain to finish running before I can ask follow-up questions. So basically, just are there ways to minimize steps and also the amount of context switching. So I started off with just some very rough ideation, trying to explore ways to, maybe we could trigger it via like a hotkey, and also present a unique state in the UI so that you don't have to go to the panel, but you can still tell that it's separate from code. So here on the right is just a few very rough ideas, using inline diffs, maybe pop-ups, styling the code block, gutter line status, text styling, that sort of thing. So here's one of the concepts that I came up with that I think has some potential. So one is to use ghost text in the editor window to indicate the shortcut as well as the action. So in this case, you can quick chat, and you can also see the gutter icon that this is related to GitLab Duo. So it's a little hard to see maybe in this video, but in the editor window, this is just standard ghost text. So it should be noticeable, but not overbearing or annoying to the user. So if the user triggers that shortcut, we would then inline present sort of a div with a border here. And the reason I tried to keep it inline was because it can be kind of obnoxious when you have pop-ups or things blocking something that you're working on in your existing flow. So this is trying to merge and fit within the editor view while still providing a distinct UI, so you can tell, oh, I'm in a different state right now, rather than trying to distinguish from, say, code suggestions currently when you start typing a comment and you can't tell if it's autocomplete, code gen, or just a standard comment writing. And again, that icon is still there and presenting suggestions through keyboard shortcuts. Again, trying to really promote developer workflows are often keyboard heavy, so trying to minimize the need to rely on the mouse. So if you ask your question, it displays the keyboard shortcut, and they can just press enter and their question will get sent. The other method I took here was using a distinct color as well as the icon to differentiate the Duo's response within the IDE and distinguish it from the user's question. Once they send it, you can see it grays out so that they know that is no longer an active question. They can also ask a follow-up question below. Another idea was to present what context is being used. So again, it might be a little bit hard to see on the screen, but this would just be saying like current file was used, and plus say a badge indicating the number of additional references if there are any beyond just the current file. That just reassures the user and gives some context that, oh, is this have the whole code base, or what is it using here to generate this answer? So another way is, what if you want to select code and ask a question about it? So you can see here, you select the code, and then this add to quick chat option appears once you've selected the code. Again, with some keyboard hotkeys. Again, they might be a little bit hard to see in this prototype right now, but essentially the user is instructed that this option is available, and if they choose to click that, that code gets copied into the chat. And so they can ask now a follow-up question right away about it without having to wait for, say, running the explain / command. And from here, they just press enter and they can ask a question about this specific code snippet. And it returns, just like the last one, provides the context that was used, and they have the ability to continue asking follow-up questions. So say they ask a follow-up question, perhaps we could even allow them to target specific contexts, like for example, documentation could be useful if they want to ask for specific information about a suggestion that was provided, or take an action that builds on what was provided by Duo here. So the next concept would be code generation. So as I mentioned before, code generation can sometimes be a little bit confusing to a new user because you can't tell what state you're in. Are you writing just a comment? You see the ghost text for auto suggest, which is very clear and an established pattern, but it's not clear when code suggestions is running. For example, here I pressed enter, and I'm not quite sure, is this a code suggestion or is it a code generation? Is code generation not working correctly? Well, I was playing around with it. It did seem like maybe it's not working correctly here, but again, it's not clear the states because again, it's all using the same comment pattern, and it's often takes a little bit of time to generate some code. So that can sometimes be a little bit confusing, especially to new users who aren't familiar with it. And there might be ways that we can address this and just avoid the problem entirely. So some potential improvements, again, avoiding that same workflow pattern, having a distinctive UI state, supporting the ability to further customize their code gen prompt. For example, they might want to give a series of complicated instructions and target specific context. And when they see the new code, could we display it differently than just the ghost text that's also used for autocomplete? And also just make it more obvious when code gen fails or when it's loading. So in this example, I thought, well, why not just add it to inline chat? They're both using a very similar pattern, and by just expanding on the empty state here, the entry point could be identical. So they're in here, the ghost text guiding message does give some more instructions that they also can use it to generate code. Again, this might be hard to see, so I'll read it out. Ask a question or give an instruction to generate code. So the user just starts typing, and they decide after typing which path they want to go down. Do they want to generate, which is a distinctive action by pressing they can either use the keyboard or they can press the mouse here, or they can also just ask a quick question. Again, these keyboard shortcuts are just suggestions, but probably be some variation on the enter button. So let's assume we press generate. So a block of code is generated and it appears in the editor as a diff, so you can see the standard green highlighting. This isn't a pattern that developers will recognize. They can review it. It hasn't been accepted yet. They have the ability to accept it or reject it, and they could also potentially want to revise it. So if they revise it, they could provide additional instructions. The exact patterns around this, I still have to do some more exploring, but this is just to illustrate the concept. So let's say here we accept it. It now appears as part of your code. There would be the indication that this is new code here and has been added, but aside from that, it's just like your standard workflow. So some examples of some of the different states I already talked about. We would have our default empty chat. We would have indicators here to help onboard users, but also help build that habit with users of using keyboard shortcuts, because I really think keyboard shortcuts is the way to go over having to use your mouse every time you want to interact with Duo. We've also got things where the initial question, you have the ability to get an immediate answer and ask follow-up questions as well. Code gen, I already went through all this, but it's very, very similar. The only real change is at the beginning here, we have this button for generating. So some future ideas that build on this. What if we have some more advanced options as part of this chat. So perhaps we could use the @ symbol to target specific contexts. For example, maybe I have active files open and I want to ask a question about one of those files. Perhaps because if they're open, I'm likely to be working on them and flipping between related files. I might want to ask a question that's specific to one while I'm in another file. So this helps me ask the question without having to switch contexts. Another idea, perhaps if we have agents, we could have things where you can target an agent to do a specific task, again, right from the chat. Documentation. What if I can add any documentation I want specific to my code base? For example, at GitLab, we might want pajamas or the GitLab documentation, and I can ask a question specifically about that while I'm, say, working on a particular component. Another idea that might be cool is if we could integrate our ability to ask the AI questions about issues. So how do I recreate a bug that's described in this issue? Something like that. And the last idea I had here was the ability to access prompt templates. If the user could provide their own prompts that are customized to their own workflow and maybe even shared among teams, this could be a helpful way for them to target those with minimal effort. Just press @ this pops up. I press P or select this, and now I could select one. Say I want to try to have my code reviewed because I'm trying to apply functional programming patterns. I could run this prompt just like that. Last idea. So what if we had the ability to exclude files? So with this idea to improve the amount of context we're sending, there is going to be cases where not every file the user won't want to send every type of file. Perhaps we could borrow a pattern from gitignore. Maybe we call it duoignore or something like that. And they can specify directories, specific files, or even just patterns to target, say, any untitled file, which is potentially something where users, there's workflows where some users I know will paste sensitive snippets to verify or test them, and they don't save it into their code base, but we also don't want to send that with any AI request, so why not put it in an ignore file? The other idea, perhaps we could borrow a pattern from ESLint and allow the users to exclude just sections of a file that they're working on. So perhaps duo disable the code block from the start. Anything in between these two tags will not get sent. Oh, I do have one more idea, and this was the prompt templates. So this relates to what I mentioned earlier, but just allowing users to save files and have these templates that they can customize to their specific workflow and fine-tune them. So that's it for now. I will keep uploading these videos as I continue to explore design ideas. Thanks for watching, and check out the issue linked in the description. Thanks.